Well, good afternoon, all. Really would like to change gears a little bit and instead of talking about cars themselves, change gears and talk a little bit about infrastructure and some things that AAA is involved in to really expand the use and enjoyment of electric vehicles. So if you would be so kind as to bear with me as I walk through it, I'd like to set up why we became involved. AAA has been around for over 100 years. We started back in 1902, and that's an interesting time because at that time there were really as many electric vehicles on the road as there were gasoline vehicles. Gasoline vehicles and electric vehicles, gasoline's newer than electric. So we do a number of things in addition. Most people think of us immediately for roadside assistance, but other things. Our foundation was really around advocacy, trying to help people use their car and enjoy the use of their car, because when cars first came out, they wouldn't let them go in cities because they scared horses. There weren't roads. You couldn't find your way to get around. And I think that really brings up this next slide. This is actually from a tour book from 1909. And if you'll notice, the lower right hand has a picture of electric vehicles charged. So we've been doing this a long time. We were slow to get back into it. Today, AAA is a not-for-profit, fully tax-paying entity. We're made up of clubs that serve our members. We have 53 million members in the U.S. That's about 1 out of 4 households. And really our forte, we have unbiased and independent expertise around motorist advocacy, highway safety, automotive information, travel information. So we've got quite a bit going on. And that all really plays into why we're involved in EVs. Our commitment as an association is to look out for our members. If our members want to drive gasoline cars, we're going to be there to support them with gasoline cars. If they want to drive electric vehicles, we need to be able to provide them the same services and support that they get with gasoline cars. And if it's hydrogen in 10 years or 20 years, whatever comes up next, we need to meet our members' needs. Our research clearly showed that AAA members are more likely to buy electric vehicles than the general public. And it's slight, but it's certainly something that they're looking at and that they would consider. And AAA took a look at how we could support that in a number of ways. And I'll walk through what some of those are right now. The first is really education, and you've heard of the EDTA and Go Electric Drive website. We are working with both of those entities to produce some information, generate some information, and communicate it out so we can really try to help people understand what electric vehicles are and are not, make educated decisions, remove some of the misinformation that's out there. Also, roadside safety. We do a bunch of roadside events every year. And whether it's a hybrid or an electric vehicle, we need to be able to make sure that number one, the person that shows up from AAA can make sure that the driver of the car isn't injured. And number two, they can make sure that they're not injured. So, we really have done some training around keeping them, how do you handle crashes? How do you handle recharge? How do you handle a number of different situations? And then the one I'll expand more on, because it seems to be what people are most interested in, is mobile EV charging. So when we talk about local infrastructure support, that, in my mind, is the education combined with what we call fixed site charging. So that would be a charging station available to the general public at AAA locations. And nationwide, we continue to install them. We've got them here in Orlando, at AAA, and the AAA National Office in Lake Mary has charging station. You'll see them across Florida, and really, I would say across the country. I was just up in Tennessee. They're installing them in Tennessee. We've got many on the West Coast. So just supporting the infrastructure. And I was thinking about, putting them at a destination, and I'd like to delude myself and think that going to the AAA National Office was equivalent to going to Disneyland. But, okay, the difference is you can get it charged up there, so come on up and see us. But no, I'm just joking. I think, we aren't the destination, but the fact is it's the infrastructure that allows people to use their vehicles that's going to help support. In an example, I had a Volt for several weeks that I was driving. I live in Dr. Phillips, and I work in Lake Mary. And, I could drive, and that's 32 miles, and I drove every day from my house, charged up at AAA, and drove home. And never once did I put gasoline on the car. If you look at the average American, they're not commuting 64 miles a day. In fact, they're not commuting 32 miles a day. And the point behind that was we could, for the vast majority of people, this makes sense. So we're supporting the infrastructure in that way. Another thing that I'd say is pretty cool is that we've actually got charge locations in our triptychs, our internet triptychs. So you can go on, plan a trip, and it'll actually show you where the charging locations are. Show you whether it's level 1 or level 2, whether it's up and active. Pretty cool functionality. Let you plan your trip a little bit better. And we update that on a nightly basis. So again, I think where most of the interest has come is really around our mobile charging. A year ago, we recognized that electric vehicles were going to be a factor in the marketplace. We decided that we would take a look at what we could do to service those vehicles at the roadside as opposed to towing them. And we have developed an R&D project. I'll walk through a couple of slides, but basically we've added the ability to recharge an electric vehicle with, just like adding a gallon of gas at the roadside, we can recharge with energy at the roadside in a vehicle that is not necessarily dedicated to electric vehicle recharging, which makes it viable. If all I was doing was waiting for an electric vehicle to run out of energy, man, these trucks wouldn't move. So we put them in a truck that does normal service, come out, change your tire, get your keys out of the car. It's not single purpose, and it makes it an economically viable. It makes sense to put these in the market. So what we've done is really looked at 3 different models. We wanted to be as environmentally friendly as we could. We wanted to make sure that we had a product that would last, a product that was safe and efficient. And so we really came up with 3 different power sources. One is a compressed natural gas generator set. We also have that in a biodiesel version. We have a lithium-ion battery pack, which I'll speak to in a little bit, and that is recharged by alternators on the a larger alternator installed on the vehicle. And finally, a hydraulic PTO unit, which runs off of a transmission. So the differences is how we can package them, the types of vehicles they can fit in. You see we have models that will work in a Transit Connect and other models that will work in an F-350. But in all these cases, the vehicles are capable. The vehicles that we install these in are capable of doing the basic stuff, roadside assistance, getting your keys out of the car, changing a tire. One of the most unique things is that in our vision, level 2 charging, 240-volt charging is not a viable solution because the time it takes to provide 15 miles of range, I mean, bottom line, we're all going to get old sitting there waiting for that to happen. We really wanted level 3. And while level 3 is pretty new, and there's not a lot of vehicles out there that are capable of level 3 right now, it was important to us because we can deliver 15 miles of range in about 10 or 11 minutes, which really starts to make sense for everybody. We are going to test this, or are testing this in 6 markets. The market shouldn't be a surprise. It's East Tennessee, Tampa, Seattle, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, general Portland area, Bay Area, and finally San Diego. This is probably a little closer to LA on the map, but it'll be in San Diego. The goal of this is a couple of things. To find out, number one, how do we deploy them? How many vehicles need to be in a market before we need to have these out there? And it was interesting on over the holidays. I was doing some work, and we had 4 calls in the Bay Area New Year's Day. People had run out of energy. Now, I don't know what happened New Year's Day because for the previous week we didn't have a single call, but we had 3 calls over the New Year's Day and New Year's Eve in Los Angeles. So it's coming. There's a need for this. We need to be there. What we need to learn, and what we'll learn from this test, is how many vehicles in a marketplace before it makes sense to deploy. How do we get them out where they need to be? And then which technologies actually last? You know, I mean, I'd love to use lithium ion, but what we've learned is there's some issues. DOT has some concerns with lithium ion battery packs, and they really do not want them in anything that could have an accident on the road that hasn't gone through full crash testing. So we're looking at ways to make them feel better, to make sure that we're doing the right thing in a safe way, and still delivering something that works at the roadside. So here's kind of a picture of what we're doing. It looks like, if you've ever called AAA to get your keys out of the car, looks just like what would show up any day. They actually have batteries on there. So not batteries, not lithium-ion batteries for EVs, of course. We're not changing batteries like that at the roadside. But this is a regular, everyday vehicle we can use, and it's been successful. Some things it's been successful in concept, a couple of challenges we've run into. For those who are considering, we got in very, very early, and we started dealing with technology that was not fully developed. And Level 3 has gone through a couple changes. And being able to have a Level 3 unit that, the early ones were very temperamental. And I think that was a learning. It was difficult to be on the front edge of it, but what we gained by going through that side has really made us more effective in speccing what we want, and in actually working with some of the Level 3 manufacturers to simplify their systems. So with that, I'm going to get off the stage, and questions follow?
Yes.